orientation, gender identity and expression, and sex characteristics concepts. Module 6 is Engendering SSE, when the gender perspective reinvents the social and solidarity economy. All right, so before anything else, all right, so let me just remind everyone that this is being live streamed across the social media platforms of ASEC, which is it's now on YouTube. All right, so um, if you are having issues with your bandwidth, you may just simply keep your video off. And if you would wish to share your insights, um, you can utilize the chat box. If you have urgent questions that you would really want to share live, you may raise your hands and we are more than happy to call you. All right, so before anything else, a few quick reminders, important reminders actually. All right, so first, for those trainees who have not registered in Dakila, we highly suggest that you do so because we are already in the middle of our online course and there are lots of synchronous or asynchronous exercises to be completed. And yeah, that's the second reminder. And these are both urgent reminders. I have started calling participants this week, asking for their progress on how they are planning to complete the asynchronous exercises. And I'm very happy to hear that everyone is committing to complete the exercises before we end this course. And we fully understand um we understand the situation of most of you, like working, like your multiple burdens, like for those people who are actively involved with their jobs as community organizers. We fully understand that. What we would just like to ask from you is to at least commit like 2 to 3 hours of your time for Dakila each day. Right, and of course payment. Yeah, details are frequently being sent on the email reminders that we are sending. So yes, you can go ahead and do that. But then if there are questions, I am always free to answer all of those. You know that you can always reach me through through WhatsApp, through Telegram, through Viber, and yes, I can also be contacted through email. All right, so before we start, I prepared a short activity to lighten the mood first. Okay, before we begin our session. It's a Mentimeter activity again, so I know you are all familiar with how we do this. Okay, so for everyone who are in front of their computers, tablets, or phones, okay, so please go to www.menti.com. That is menti.com. And if it asks for a code, please type in 52486860. Again, www.menti.com, and please use the code 52486860. All right. For those who are not able to access Mentimeter, you can type your answers on the chat box. And once you are logged in, you should be prompted to the first question that we have for our Mentimeter activity this afternoon, which is what do you expect to learn from our session today? To give you an idea, today is about gender. It's about women's empowerment. So we would like to know what do you expect to learn from our session today? We will try to incorporate and integrate gender and the concepts related to sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, and sex characteristics, as well as women's empowerment to SSE. So yes, please feel free to type in your expectations for this afternoon. Okay, so we have one participant who typed in his or her or their answers. Understand the inequality happening in Southeast Asia. Thank you for sharing about that. All right, so what else? Who else would like to share their insights? Okay, so from the chat box, from Cap Prime, our birthday celebrant for today, expecting more clarifications on SOGS. Thank you, Cap Prime. We have here learning about gender equality in SSE. Thank you very much. We also have here excited to learn about the gender perspective and how this can be integrated in our development work. Yes, that's actually very good, and we are going to have more of that. We have here how the SSE can promote women's economic empowerment. Yes. So yes, Doc Nazi is going to tackle that. We have here from Ma'am Marilyn, deep understanding about SOGS. Thank you. And then the Olive, deepening issues on SOGS. Yeah, thank you very much. Who else? So we have here women's empowerment, of course. Different meanings of the terminologies of sexual orientations, gender identity and expression. We have are interested to know how other Asian women face their inequality issues. Thank you. And then we have understanding the gender interest, especially on gender gap. Yes, thank you very much for raising this up. From Hill, empowering women to participate in governance. Yes, thank you very much for sharing about that. All right, so who else? Going once, going twice. I need to move on to the next question. This is a bonus question. All right. So just for fun, how do you describe a perfect weekend? Since it's Saturday in the Philippines, I know it's Saturday again in Southeast Asia. So yeah, how do you describe your perfect weekend? Like us right now, we are doing synchronous sessions. What about for you? How do you describe your perfect weekend? Perhaps going to the beach, what else? Or having bonding moments with family. Yes, someone answered coffee and cozy couch. Yes, I love that as well. No work. Okay, thank you. All right, so we have here on the chat box. Naka Prime has a sharing on the first question. How are we going to advocate on issues of SOGS because majority of them are discriminated in our society? Thank you very much, Ka Prime, for that. Okay, so according to going back to the current question for our Mentimeter activity, for him, for her, or for they, perfect weekend is healing time. Yes, for some. And enjoy the beach. Wow, without doing anything. I hope everyone can get the chance to go to the beach each weekend. Relaxing, not doing anything. Yes, thank you very much. We can all agree on that. Okay, watching the waves. Yeah, perhaps this person lives near the sea or near the beach. So I envy you. So who else? Oh, any other any other contribution or sharing to this okay, family, good food, of course, good book, yes. I love good book as well. Good movie. Yes, that's what is Netflix for. Okay, so who else? Okay, so we have here on the chat box planning from Mahim. Okay, planning about coming week. Wow. Yes, thank you. And then make more available time, I guess, according to Ernesto, make more available time with the family. Yes, thank you very much for that. Okay, so okay, perfect weekend according to Cap Prime, unwinding by talking to my two alagang pusa or two pet cats, pantanggal ng stress. Yes, Cap Prime use her weekend to spend time with her cats, with her two cats, to as a way to relieve stress. Thank you, Cap Prime. Okay, so yeah, so there we were able to get all your answers. All right, so before we formally begin, I would like to, urban gardening. Okay, according to Hill. Okay, urban gardening. Thank you very much. That's actually good and very in nowadays. All right, so let me continue by introducing our three resource persons for this afternoon. To give everyone an idea, we have three resource persons. Two of them were the ones who designed and wrote the module for 5 and 6, and one is an invited speaker. And let me move forward to introducing them. First is Shigeru Tanaka. He is the executive director at Pacific Asia Resource Center, or PARC, a not-for-profit think tank based in Tokyo. He has been instrumental in organizing the second Asian Forum on Solidarity Economy in Tokyo in 2009, and since been involved in the Japanese Solidarity Economy movement. As a member of the Continental Board of RIPES, Intercontinental Network for the Promotion of Social Solidarity Economy, Shigeru has experience working with SSE practitioners in Europe, North America, Latin America, in addition to Asia, and more specifically, Japan. He currently has a project in Brazil, working with a local consumer farmer co-op in bettering livelihoods and protecting traditional sustainable farming practices, while preventing large-scale mining activities in the region. So our guest speaker is Shigeru Tanaka. Let's give him our warmest round of virtual applause. But before that, let me move forward to the two resource persons who also designed and wrote these two modules. First is Dr. Excelsa Sitongson. Excelsa Sitongson is a faculty member at the Department of Family Life and Child Development, College of Home Economics, University of the Philippines. She was the College Secretary of College of Home Economics and Project Development Associate at the Office of the University Registrar. Currently, she is the Deputy Director for Training, Outreach, and Extension Program at the UP Center for Women's and Gender Studies, President of the Women's and Gender Studies Association of the Philippines, and Chairperson of the Philippines Social Science Council. She graduated cum laude with a degree of Bachelor of Elementary Education from the Philippine Normal University. She has a master's degree in Family Life and Child Development and a doctoral degree in Social Development, both from the University of the Philippines. Doc Etchell has engaged widely with children, women, and LGBT groups in both rural and urban areas for more than 20 years. Her research interests include gender-responsive early childhood care and development, women and gender studies, specifically unpaid care of women in the sandwich generation. She has published in various local and international academic journals and presented academic papers here and abroad. Let's give a warm round of applause to Dr. Chaltong Son. And last but not the least, Dr. Natalie Lourdes Africa Verceles. Doc Natsi is the director of the University of the Philippines Center for Women's and Gender Studies. She is a member of the faculty and was a former chair of the Department of Women and Development Studies and was the director of the Doctor of Social Development Program at the College of Social Work and Community Development, UP Diliman. Natsi has a BSc Honors Economics degree from the University of London. She finished her bachelor's degree in philosophy, master's degree in Women and Development Studies, and doctorate degree in social development from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Her research and extension work are in the areas of gender and development and gender and the economy. Natsi is the treasurer and a member of the board of trustees of the Likaan Center for Women's Health, an organization focused in promoting the health and rights of women from marginalized communities, and a former treasurer of the Women's and Gender Studies Association of the Philippines. She is the co-convener of the Asian Solidarity Economy or Council or ASEC Philippines Network. Let's give also a warm round of applause to Dr. Natsi Africa Verceles. All right, so right now, so let's now give our warmest round of virtual applause to Shigeru Tanaka. You may go ahead now, Shigeru.
Okay, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and what more way of spending a perfect weekend than spending time at Aunt Rosalinda's day camp here. So it's already a perfect weekend for me just by being here. So thank you very much for that. And as I have been introduced, I am a member of ASEC since around 2009 when we organized the Asian Solidarity Economy Forum in Tokyo. And right now, I am also taking part as a representative from Asia in the Continental Network, REPES. And I'm one of the global coordinators. My term has supposed to have been ended by now, but we are looking for people to succeed me and two of my colleagues. So I don't know how long I will be the global coordinator, but so far that is my position right now. And right now, I also work very closely with some of the Japanese social solidarity economy movement and the institutions that identify with us. And today I'm going to introduce you all to a cooperative in Japan. And I understand that today's module is primarily on gender, but I'm going to introduce a cooperative that focuses not necessarily on gender, but on people with mental disabilities and how they are combating discrimination and how that is also having ripple effects that also impact gender rights and especially bodily autonomy. So I'm going to introduce this very interesting case, and maybe I hope it will be food for thought for you all. Okay, so starting my screen share, okay. So I'm going to introduce the cooperative called the WAPA in Japan. The photo, I hope you're able to see it. And so the history of the WAPA cooperative is that it started in Nagoya in 1971 by some college students deeply involved in student activism. So they have been around for over 50 years, and it's one of the historic examples of SSE in Japan. And at first, it was just 2 students with one differently abled coworker. And the key questions that they had when they established this cooperative is that the 2 students without disabilities who began the business, they get regular pay. But the system was such in Japan about how you employ differently abled workers is that those with disabilities only get paid 1/4 of a regular worker's wage. And I'm going to explain how this was and how this became an issue for these 3 people. So in Japan, we have a system of disabled workers' compensation. And how it is that if you establish a care facility, which announces itself as a working center for the disabled, and they get accredited for that, then when they hire a differently abled person, he or she or whatever his or that person's gender identity is, that person is registered not as a worker, but as a trainee. And since trainees are not workers per se, they do not get any type of labor protection whatsoever. So they are not protected under minimum wage. They do not get paid leave. They do not get workers' injury compensation. And how the system works is that they are only paid about 1/4 of the regular salary by the workplace, and the rest is compensated by the government. So how it works is if I were to establish a company and I ask for accreditation of being working center for the disabled, and I am in fact accredited by my local government, in my case, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and I actually hire a person with a diagnosed mental disability, then I only have to pay that person 1/4 of the salary that I pay the other workers. And then that person actually gets disabled worker people's pensions. And that is what covers for the rest of the wage that that person would have needed in order to live. And so what this system creates is that for the workers, they have a economic incentive to make a clear distinction between people who are abled and not abled. And by putting that person in the not abled category, they are automatically allowed to only pay 1/4 of the wage that the worker would pay otherwise. So it's an economic advantage for that person to label a person not abled, to exclude them from the regular workers' benefits. And that way that person can get the full wage, including the pension, and live a life and the company can do its business, is how it incentivizes the establishment. And so these trainees who are locked into this position, the corporation or whatever the establishment is, has a very strong incentive not to upgrade these people to regular workers. So it allows, of course, these people to somewhat access work and access some income, but it does not empower these people. The system incentivizes people with disabilities to hold on to that status as not abled and thus make it economically beneficial for the employers. And so when WAPA started, they really didn't like that system. And they were working together. And although one person had a mental disability, that person was also putting in a lot of work. And they knew that. And they did not feel comfortable that they're only paying that person 1/4 and being helped by the municipal government to support that person. And so their philosophy is that they do not treat differently abled workers as trainees, and they offer equal pay for equal work, regardless of the level of ability. And they have a concept of this shared wallet amongst the workers, and they have a co-governance structure. And they said they're not going to rely on government subsidies. And so in the shared wallet and co-governance structure, decisions are made in the workers' assembly, not by the founders themselves, or not by the president of the company. And they are actually having right now 67 regular workers, slightly more of which are female. And they have also 15 to 20 differently abled workers, most of them with mental disorders. And they all get same pay. They are not discriminated, at least at this establishment. And when you look at their place, this is the bakery that they offer. And as you can see, if you just look at these still photos, you really can't tell who is differently abled and who is not. And they try to have a horizontal hierarchy, and they work together in baking bread. That sounds really easy, but reality is pretty complicated. And according to a memoir written by a worker, at one point today, there were 30 workers crammed in the workplace. 78 were fighting for a place in the forming section. One all of a sudden shouts, "What the hell?" And then there's screams in response with a screeching high tone. And there's someone singing while another stands by her side and constantly mumbles the same words they hear. What the hell, 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 what the hell. The mixers are rambling. Someone just raised the volume of the radio to max. And there's no way anyone can actually notice whether or not the phone is even ringing. A fight begins in the corner of the room, and they're hitting each other really hard. Like, ouch, kind of situation. And this is just a typical day. But in spite of this, by the end of the day, to anyone's astonishment, we have some of the best bread in town baked and ready. So that's how they spend their day. Every day is a chaos. Every day is not normal. And in that situation, sometimes you will actually see people scolding people with mental disorders. And I say scolding, but it's not like hitting or excessively shouting or anything. It's just saying, no, you just can't do that, or that's not the right way to do things. You know? And they don't hesitate to do that because they are in there together as co-workers and everyone's livelihoods are at stake. And to not say anything is a prejudice against that person. So if you fear that that person cannot take it, then that's already a discrimination in their philosophy. It's assuming that that person cannot take that. And so they do, of course, offer internal training on how to communicate, how best to communicate. But they don't draw the line saying, oh, that person is a disabled person, so I'm not supposed to say any harsh things to that person. They don't draw the line like that. But they do draw a clear line between what's bullying and what's being mad at that person rightfully. And when you're mad, it's better to be honest about the feeling than to try to tuck it away. That's what we call treating other persons as equals. And so they have this philosophy where they communicate openly, and they try not to treat everyone in different ways, regardless of the disabilities. And they struggle to make things better. Regular workers, they should not have to carry the full burden or an overburden. So they find out what each worker can and cannot do. And regular workers should not have to take care of the differently abled workers. So they don't want to lock in place a role where some people care for the others and the others are constantly being taken care of. And so the differently abled workers also on their side, they should feel empowered and need not feel disenfranchised. And the differently abled workers need not feel like they are a burden. They need to feel that they are contributing to the bread making. And the workers all struggle to understand how best to make the workplace better. So it's a constant discussion. Today, this happened. These people got in a fight. How can we stop that from happening tomorrow? They have these meetings often, and they try to somehow find a way where they can coexist. And it's, of course, a major struggle. But they think it's a struggle worth fighting for. And that's why they continue. For over 50 years, they've been making bread this way. And to go back to kind of framework that Professor Benjamin Quinones usually talks about, one is about the governance. The cooperative is not run by regular workers for the differently abled, but rather a cooperating workplace. They have a horizontal governance structure, and they have these edifying values. It trains staff members to work with differently abled people in more empowering ways, and it also empowers the differently abled people themselves to be assertive, to feel like they can contribute. And they don't highlight the differences, but they try to find the common ground. In terms of social development, the cooperative has allowed hundreds of differently abled people to get trained and move on. And so they don't put people in these facilities where they can kind of work. It's a place where they get empowered and move on. They become a part of the actual workforce in Japan. They fulfill their own careers after they get trained at this bakery. And it also changed the mindsets of the people in neighboring community. So the history of WAPA has changed the perception of these facilities for the mentally ill. It was a traumatic place before. People would not want to walk close to it. They would avoid that area. But now they're accepted in the community and they understand more how to communicate with differently abled people. And the people actually come and buy bread. And the cooperative also works really hard in influencing public policy. This is the other reason they do not get government funding, is because they want to influence public policy and they work hard to advocate for a better public policy. And they don't want to go to the government and be threatened that they would take out subsidies. So they don't rely on government funding. And I'll explain this part later, but they don't see this project as a goal, but as a means to achieve change. Now, in terms of environment, the co-op is weak on this dimension, and the material used in the bread are not necessarily organic or locally grown, but they are having discussions on this part. And in terms of economic sustainability, they have been able to keep the enterprise going on for over 40 years, over 50 years actually. And so they are obviously economically viable. And I want to discuss this cooperative's implications on social inclusion specifically. Now, is this cooperative, the WAPA Bakery, is it the ideal? No, but it's an ideal. Is the WAPA model replicable? Surely not for everyone in every place. It is hugely chaotic. Everyone should have a glimpse, at least, at how things are at that place. It's really a chaos, and it's really magic how they actually come up with the right amount of bread with the right flavor. So I wouldn't say that everyone can replicate it, and then we're all good. That's not how it works. WAPA's existence actually questions authority and also imposes difficult questions on us. So how is it that structures of care are used in such ways to actually exclude the other? So the care policy of Japan was supposed to be, at least in philosophy, to support the livelihoods of those with mental disabilities. But in effect, what these workplaces are doing is actually unlocking them into situations of disability and offering no ladders up from there. And so how can we change that system? WAPA offers at least a direction that's possible. And why is it that establishments like WAPA are not necessarily rewarded for its efforts in our socio-economic systems? So of course, WAPA does a phenomenal job at sustaining itself, but one can rightfully worry that it may not work or it may be extremely difficult to sustain that business. And that's justifiably so. But why does it have to be that way? Why can't it be that bakers like WAPA are rewarded for what they try and what they do to integrate people and to empower people? And so that is exactly where we see WAPA as a role model for SSE as a movement. So we see SSE not as something static, and it should not be about checking the boxes. So you shouldn't look at establishment and say, okay, this place is doing this place is doing that. Okay, check, check. Okay, you can call yourself SSE. No, that's not how it works. At least in my philosophy of SSE, it doesn't work that way. What WAPA does is it doesn't say that if you do it like us, you will be SSE, but what it does is it poses a question, and it's a continuum of struggles to make the world a better place. And WAPA continues to struggle every day, and we should too. And why this also cross-cuts with issues of bodily autonomy and gender equality in Japan is that actually until 1996, Japan had in its books a eugenics law. And so these workers with mental disabilities, as defined by the governments, the facilities that took care of these workers were legally allowed to actually conduct surgery on these workers so that they cannot have children. And that was legally allowed in Japan until 1996. And there is still a generation of people alive today who think that was and still is how things should be. And there's actually a very recent Supreme Court decision that actually punished a facility for the mentally disabled, as they call it, that was still continuing to mandate surgeries, sterilization surgeries on both men and women who wanted to get married. And so this is an ongoing situation about who makes the decision to have family and bodily autonomy. And this discussion really makes a ripple effect also onto those who are poor, those who are marginalized, immigrant populations. And it is really striking or actually beginning a nationwide conversation on whether or not, and I think not, governments should step in on people's decision to have families or not. And so, of course, abortion rights is a different direction, but it still has to do with bodily autonomy. And so looking at the WAPA cooperative and how it does, is it actually says these people are not economically different, or we can at least treat people as not economically different than what some of the critics of, the proponents of the eugenics law say they are. They are not an economic burden. The proponents of eugenics law says that these people with disabilities are an economic burden and thus should not have children so as to increase the burden of the other people. And so they say that is not true. These people can work, can be a contributor to the society. And the actual presence of WAPA and their advocacy is actually creating a very, very heated discussion on bodily autonomy overall. And so this SSE case, it's not this huge national movement that gets covered. It's a very small bakery. It's not a big bakery, though they have a lot of people working there. But what they can do is to initiate a national conversation. And they conduct their business following their philosophy. And by doing so, and doing just one step further into bringing up that discussion as in many places as they can, they offer a place to discuss how best the world should be. And that, I think, is the role of SSE institutions like the WAPA, and how we see SSE not as a static thing, but as a movement. I know this wasn't the case of gender equality or gender identity, as some have indicated they want to talk about, but it's really a case in point about how integration and how the raising of discussion is a very fundamental role in SSE. And I just wanted to bring that out as a case study today. So I said I wanted to leave some time for questions, and I hope there are people who might want to know a little bit more about this. So that's it from me. I tried to keep it short, but because of that, I did skip over a lot of things. But if people have questions, I'd be happy to answer, or try to answer at least.
Thank you very much, Shigeru. Let's all give for Shigeru our warmest round of virtual applause. This is really a very comprehensive and fruitful discussion. I personally learned a lot since I am also advocating for persons with disabilities here in the Philippines. I'm trying to advocate through a lot of projects and programs. So thank you. All right, so let's open the Zoom floor for questions to Shigeru. If you have any feedback about his presentation, comments, yes, we are more than happy to answer it. So I think we have here, Shigeru, from William, how WAPA or WAPPA handle PW groups when they are working with able people.
Can you maybe elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
William. William, is it possible for you to open your microphone to elaborate this? William?
Yeah, just want to, can hear my voice, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Because the working mode is like with people with have mental health, and then they're working with able people. How WAPA, I mean, like how they come to an agreement when working together. I mean, like not harming other people, but the work is still going on. Yeah, just that's my question.
Yeah, that's kind of a wonder, but they just talk it out, basically. They really spend time talking it out with the workers. And so, of course, when the day begins, they need to bake the bread. But when the day ends, they really review the day together and say what worked and what didn't work. How can we do things better? And of course, not everything is improved the next day, but at least they try to improve on some things. And so they really spend time on that part, discussing how things work, where people want to work. So some people will shape the bread. Some people would cut the dough, or some people would mix the flour and the eggs. And so they discuss who will be on which position. They have an elaborate discussion on that in the beginning. Of course, it's not always followed, but they just try to really talk it out. They don't like order the workers to go somewhere, and they don't treat them as people who can't listen or can't learn. And yeah, they imagine how you would try to bake bread with some of your friends. If you have a house party and you're just trying to bake 50 people's worth of bread, how would you try to do it at your house? And they try to do the same exact thing. Just talk it out, find how it works, and then review it for the next day. I don't know if this answers the question, but yeah, it's really a long discussion that they have.
And then one more, does they like giving like any action, like harmful action to their colleague or coworker? I mean, I mean, they do like a threat, not a threat, action that probably when no, okay.
No. There's no bodily threat. There's no mental threat. They do get mad sometimes and say you can't do that, but it's only to guide the person in doing it in the right procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have like the SOP or guideline to handle that kind of conflict.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, William, and thank you, Shigeru, for answering that. We actually have several questions here. Let's begin with Asma first. Asma asked, what is WAPPA sustainability model, or what is their business model? Shigeru.
Okay, so one thing that's really interesting is where they sell their bread to. And so some of it actually goes to local school lunches. That is a huge bulk of where they sell to. And they also sell to groups like those who care for the urban poor in Nagoya. Or they also work with communities that work on community-based healthcare. And so they have a network of progressive-leaning organizations that do some kind of service that involves the distribution of food. And those are actually many of the organizations that support them economically by buying WAPA's bread. And they make a very careful process to involve as many of these like-minded groups together. So just because WAPA works with people with disabilities, they don't just work with the facilities that care for people with disabilities. They work with international NGOs. They also work with women's groups, with child poverty organizations. And that is also how they try to spread their canon as well.
Thank you very much, Shigeru, for answering the question. And I hope that answers Asma's question. We have lots of questions now, Shigeru. Questions are now pouring out. Okay, so let me continue with Rodmark. Thank you for that wonderful sharing. According to Rodmark, great story about WAPPA, and their example is very inspiring and worth emulating. His question is, could you share more details about how WAPPA influences policies for differently abled people in Japan?
Yes. So most Japanese laws have some regular review, and in that review process, they really try hard to influence the renewal of the law through public commenting, and they are also very politically active. So they try to elect local politicians who would support work like what WAPA is doing. Who would try to at least set up congressional caucuses that would start discussion on how to change the policy for the disabled. And that is how they are very politically active, I would say.
Thank you very much, Shigeru. We have here another question from William. How is people acceptance when they found out the WAPPA initiative?
When they first began it and before it became popular, people were like, you're nuts. That's not going to work. Like, nobody believed that they would be able to do this. But they did. And when they see it and when they see how the workplace operates, the first impression most people get is, oh, it's going to be difficult for me to do that. No, they get in some ways kind of disempowered, but it also is very inspiring because the example is very beautiful. You know? It's disempowering to those who have a very social mind because it's so beautiful and it also looks very hard to do. But when you study more, when you look at it more, you realize that maybe you can't do it all of a sudden. But as I said, WAPA builds on conversations. So they understand that you're not going to be able to do it on day one. No, it's leading up to that place of conversation where when they have 20 people with disabilities, not all 20 of them begin working on the same day. So, they might have one new person, but 19 of them have worked with them for a while now. And that's how they build that step to integrate. And so you understand that you can systematize this, that there are ways to kind of structure your workplace, at least if it's a baker, you might be able to replicate in others. And when you understand that, they're influenced and they're inspired and they feel they want to at least try something in their own workplaces.
Thank you, Shigeru. Before we continue with the chat box question, let's first ask Dininday to raise her question. Dininday is raising her hand. Go ahead, Din.
Okay, Shigeru, that was a wonderful sharing, but I would like to know how far WAPA has gone in terms of the gender issue, considering that PWDs have always been victims of eugenics. Even in the Philippines, in PWD homes, those who fall in love, for example, they're discouraged from getting married, having children, and the assumption is that they have no sex life, and and therefore no sex needs, and therefore they can just remain celibate. Would the WAPA, over a 50-year period, would the mentally challenged workers, did they ever get married? Did they have families? And did the able-bodied workers support them in this trajectory? Would you know?
Sure. I'm sure there are cases where people have fell in love and got married, but I don't think they have any specific records on how many cases of that, partly because they don't treat those workers as different. I mean, a workplace wouldn't take record of how many employees got married after working with them. And I think they purposefully try to not draw the line there and to keep stats on that. But I'm sure there are cases where they have got married or even maybe began some of their own works after kind of graduating from WAPA, so to say.
Thank you very much, Shigeru. I hope I hope that answers the question. Okay, let's continue with the chat box question from Rod Mark. Yeah, according to him, another question: with the assumption that WAPPA operates as a business, how do they address efficiency issues?
Well, they do need to bake bread and sell it, of course. So that's always an important part of it. But that's not necessarily because they consider it as a business. It's more a promise that they've made to their clients. And that's why they need to bake the bread. Not for the money, but to really keep the promise that they have made to the clients. And the money comes after that, is at least their basic way of thinking and the order of thinking that they want to sustain. And so actually, I don't think right now WAPA has any troubles selling their bread, because they already have this network of clients that are willing to buy from WAPA. Yeah. And then in terms of the efficiency part, of course, like if they invest, make another baking factory, they might be able to multiply their outputs and thus their revenues. They're not really thinking about that. Like, you know what they can take, and they're happy that others will learn and try to do the same thing, but they're not interested necessarily in themselves getting big.
Thank you very much, Shigeru. From Ka Prime, if we are going to apply the 5 dimensions of SSE in WAPA Enterprise, so what are the key points if the 5 dimensions that WAPA practice or is practicing as SSE Enterprise?
I think the very important point that they emphasize is about social development. And I think that becomes the primary dimension. And then they try to hit the right notes on the others. And then to achieve the social development, they really also have an emphasis on governance and edifying values. So I think they do have a priority in the 5 dimensions. It's not all equal. And in that sense, I think social development is the one that they are very much focused on.
Okay, thank you very much, Shigeru. We have 2 sharing here. One is from Marilyn. According to her, just to share that here in Cavite, Philippines, in a coffee shop, they have both abled and not abled workers. They their objective is to help those persons empowered and equals to not carry burdens. Yeah. And according to Doc Benny, okay, the WAPA case reminds me of a parallel experience of HomeNet Producers Cooperative or HPC, which sources one of its lead products, Veggie Tapa, from a person with disability. During times when the PWD is in good mood, his production supply tends to be high. But when he's not in good mood, his output is much less. Nonetheless, whether the supply is high or low, the price remains the same. Thank you, Doc Benny, for sharing it. And Doc Natsy has a question. Are there other capacity building activities conducted for the workers apart from those related to livelihood? Go ahead, Shigeru.
Was this at WAPA, or are you asking about other cases that are similar?
At WAPA in particular.
At WAPA in particular. As WAPA itself, no. But WAPA actually constructs a vast network of the progressive movement, so to say, in the local areas. So they are connected, as I mentioned, with people who work with child poverty and gender equality, international development. And through these networks, there are also, of course, many organizations that also support other types of capacity building for the workers. And so by having the selling of the bread is what connects WAPA with these various organizations. And that's what gives the workers opportunities to actually be in touch with these various other organizations who offer a variety of support nets to the people with disabilities.
Thank you very much, Shigeru. I hope that answers your question, Doc Natsy. Right, we have here a question. This is sent through WhatsApp. Okay, how can or I think the best way to position the question is, how do you think this program, like the WAPA has initiated, can be replicated in other ASEAN countries such as the Philippines?
Oh,
Yeah, what do you think is the entry point for that, Shigeru?
Well, you tell me. Well, And I'm not like denying the value of the question, of course, but I really don't know, and you probably have more wisdom in how things operate in the Philippines. Of course, I do visit the Philippines many times, usually about at least twice a year. But so Dr. Ben showed the case of the place where they produce veggie tapa. You know? What would be like a local establishment in the Philippines that is well accepted by the locals and offers a way where the product or the delivery of the product can also be used to connect with as many people as possible. I think one thing that the WAPA themselves, they don't really talk about this, but one thing about the bakery part that's really good in Japan is that people usually eat bread in Japan in the morning. It's like a morning thing or a lunch thing. It's not like a dinner thing. We eat rice and dinner, and that's like non-negotiable. And so what WAPA's business model offers is that they can finish baking the bread even if it goes to overtime. If they can finish the production, then they'll make it to the morning delivery. And so it gives them a leeway of time. So they don't have to finish by like 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. If that day it takes long for the workers, then they can go to 5 or 6 if necessary. You know? And then in the delivery phase, the workers actually go to many of the establishments, and that's where they have a face-to-face contact with the actual people who are within their communities. And by not having a shop where the shoppers just line up and buy bread and go, by doing the delivery, it gives them a little bit more leeway to actually indulge into discussions. So it's not like the next person in line is waiting and you really need to let the people go and go and go and just pay the cash and go. It's a way that actually fosters conversation. And I think that is not really written in, but it's something that has really helped in the case. And so maybe thinking of what are some commodities like that in the Philippines that might work, it might be an interesting thing to think about.
Thank you, Shigeru. For the I mean, we are running out of time. So I think for the rest of the questions, we will be opening a forum in Dakila, an online forum, and we'll be asking Shigeru to get into. We have an online platform, Shigeru, which is called Dakila, and we will be inviting you to get into Dakila to answer the rest of the questions there. But let's just take one more question. All right. Indrani is raising her hand, if that's okay. And then for the rest of the questions, we'll be opening an online forum in Dakila together with Shigeru, and he'll be more than happy to answer all of those. Okay. So Indrani, please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Vince. I mean, it's just a follow-up also on how we can replicate this. And the points that you have raised, Shigeru, about, that it's built on conversation and it's not really a business, but it's a promise. I don't know whether, is there actually some sort of a documentary? Because I think there are many groups who would like to help people with disability to kind of be part of the community. What you see is usually, as what was mentioned, that either it's an individual, who goes, who is, kind of going to the marketplace, or usually there's an intermediary NGO that kind of helps these communities. But here you actually see in WAPA that the people with disability are integrated. I think that's the important word you said. So I don't know whether if there's any documentation that kind of captures all these important points like flexibilities and conversations. It's not a business but a promise. I think it's just good for us to know, and I hope that there's some sort of documentation where we can actually have a look at this and kind of try to explore this in our ASEAN countries. Thank you.
Yes, because they've been around for a long time, there's actually a lot of documentation that's taking place in Japanese. and that's the biggest drawback right now. And interestingly, there's even PhD students are now doing research on WAPA. Like after 50 years, they're still doing research. There's still a lot to learn from WAPA. And so the documentation is this endless cycle of documentation. It's just that it's a lot of it, and most of it is in Japanese, I have to say. That said, there are a lot of translation AIs. I don't want to use AIs a lot, but hey, use it if it advances our work. And I think there are some documents that maybe you can try to see at least a glimpse of, see where it's interesting, if they hit the interesting notes, and maybe ask a professional to do actual translation after seeing which of the documentations might be of interest.
Thank you very much, Shigeru. I hope that answers your question, Indrani. Okay, thank you very much, Shigeru, for gracing this afternoon with your presence. We actually learned a lot. We do learn a lot. Like you provide us with a new dimension in terms of how we view disability and have it integrated with SSE perspectives. Thank you very much. Let's give Shigeru again our warmest round of virtual applause. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
and
Great
with
honor
that,
to speak at on Rosalinda's day camp.
Rosalinda's day camp and Benny's day camp. Okay, so
yes.
yes,
Uncle Benny's day camp as well.
I know you'll be leaving, in a bit. So before Shigeru leaves and before we continue with the discussion, can we all, for those who are able to turn their videos on, let's all have our photo session with Shigeru, with everyone, okay? So that this weekend is really a remarkable one for this online course. So let's have a group photo with him. Okay, as I count 1, 2, 3, we have 2 panels here. Let's just all flash our smiles, our weekend smiles. Okay, so first panel, okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, second panel, hold your smiles because I'm not sure if you're part of the second panel. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you very much again, Shigeru. Okay, and with that, we would like to conclude session number 1 and move forward to session number 2. All right, so Doc Etchel, are you ready for your session?
Yes, Vince, I'm ready. I'm going to show my slides. So hold on. I'm going to turn on also my video.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Let's give Doc Shell first our warmest round of virtual applause for her session number 2.
Yes, thank you very much, Vince, for introducing us to our participants. Can you now see my slide?
Yes, we can see it
very clearly. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for participating in this SSE, and we're so honored to have also, ASEC to partner with the UP Center for Women's and Gender Studies. So because this topic is about SOGS, and I know that during the earlier part of this session, we had you expressed your desire that you want to learn more about SOGS. And why is it important for us to learn about SOGSC or SOGS? So the title of my presentation is Integrating SOGS, or what we call also the gender sensitivity orientation, because we're really working with a lot of people. We have clients, and we also have employees and workers in our organizations and in our workplaces. And we need to understand why it's really very important for us to understand the connection of SOGS to gender equality, women empowerment, and also social inclusion, as what Shigeru discussed extensively earlier. Now, the Center for Women's and Gender Studies is committed to achieving gender equality and fostering inclusive society. We support all women and girls in all their diversity, regardless of their gender, their ability, ethnicity, or any other intersectional identities, including sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and sex characteristics, or SOGSC for short. But what is SOGSC? I'm sure that some of you have heard about SOGSC, but because some of you or many of you requested that we discuss about SOGSC, I'm going to discuss with you, but this will not be a very long discussion, no? Because everything that I will say or discuss in this particular lecture is found also in the KILA. So you better enroll in the KILA. It's an official learning management system of the UP Center for Women's and Gender Studies. This lecture will also help us understand that each of the individual terms has a different meaning, and when we combine them together, they make up the person's identity. So this will be the outline of my presentation. So let us differentiate. There's always a difference between sex and gender, no? But oftentimes we mix this up, no? We interchange the use of sex and gender. But we have to understand that sex is biologically defined, no? And genetically acquired differences between males and females. Usually we recognize them in terms of their genitals, no? In terms of their secondary sexual characteristics, their hormones. So that's really biologically and genetically acquired differences between males and females. So what is now gender? Sometimes when we are asking people, what is your gender? But actually we're asking about their sex assigned at birth, not the one that is found in your birth certificate when you were born. So gender means it's socially constructed. It is a socio-cultural expression of a particular characteristics and rules. No, therefore, gender can change over time, and it's different from society to society. So gender could be, there are so many other concepts related to it, including gender roles and and also many other terms, no, including your practical gender needs or strategic gender interests, which are also found in your Dakila. No, we have a lecture, we have a synchronous lecture on our materials in Dakila related to many concepts to gender. Okay, so let us break down what is SOGS, or what does really SOGS mean. Let us take a look at this one, sexual orientation, the SO in SOGS. Let us start with sexual orientation because it is about who you are emotionally, physically, and sexually attracted to someone of a different gender or yourself or themselves. No, it is about how you feel towards another person or another sex or another gender. So sexual orientation refers to the person's physical or romantic and or emotional attraction towards other people. That's why it is represented by your heart. No? How do you feel, no, by somebody else? Do you want that person to be your boyfriend or girlfriend or partner? No, and then of course that's why it's represented by the heart, because it is how you feel about another person or towards another person. So take note that sexual orientation, they take many different forms, no? But the most common is heterosexual. So for example, a woman who is a heterosexual is attracted to men only. And a man who is heterosexual is attracted to women only, no? So why is it called heteronormative? Because in many societies, people whose sex assigned at birth, for example, is a male, that person is expected to be attracted only to females. But in reality, no, there are many other forms. No, heterosexual is the norm. It's always what people expected us to be. We're attracted to the opposite sex. No, but in reality, as I said, no, gay persons or people is another type of sexual orientation. But we have to remember that another person might be attracted to someone of the same sex or gender as themselves. So for example, a female sex assigned at birth is attracted to other females, therefore they are called lesbians. But a male who is attracted to other males are called gay. So we no longer call or say homosexual, because homosexual is offensive and derogatory. So there are heterosexuals, no, there are gay persons or people, and then there's another one, the bisexual. The bisexual are attracted to both sexes, meaning to say males, no, are attracted to both males and females, and male and female are attracted to males and females, no? They are called bisexuals, meaning to say they can be attracted to both males and females, or can have romantic relationships with both males and females over their lifetime. So if you have heterosexual, no, you have gays and lesbians, we no longer call them homosexuals, ha? We have bisexual. We also have what we call pansexual. Pansexual are those who are attracted to people of more than one gender or sex. They are sexually or romantically attracted to other genders. They are not attracted only to any particular sex or gender identity. So they are called pansexual. They can be attracted to everyone, to all genders. No, it's how they define their sexual orientation. So if people, if there are pansexual people, if there are heterosexual people, there are gays and lesbians and bisexual people, there's also what we call asexual. So let us also remember that there are those who have little or no sexual attraction to anyone. They just don't want to have a relationship. So, but we have to remember that being asexual is very different from celibacy, because celibacy or abstinence is based on choice or circumstance. Like, for example, no, the priests or the nuns, they are not attracted, or perhaps they are attracted to other people, but because it is their vow of celibacy, they are not allowed to get married or have any sexual contact with other people. But take note that being asexual is not a choice. It is how you feel or you are attracted to. It is natural, no? So all of this sexual orientation, according to the United Nations Commission, Higher Commission on Human Rights, they are actually natural, no, attraction to people. So perhaps you're asking, why is he not attracted to anyone? Perhaps that person is asexual, no? So G, S-O. Now, we will go to gender identity. Let us now talk about gender identity. Take note that is represented by the brain, no? Here, it's the brain, because identity is, it's about who you are and what you think about yourself. No one tells you who you are. No one tells you that you are a man or a woman. You are actually, looking at yourself the way you want to look at yourself. So this is shown by the brain as it is about who you are. Some people identify as either man or woman, which is a common way of thinking. So parang when your sex assigned at birth is male, the common way of thinking is that you are a man. When your sex assigned at birth is female, the common thinking is that you will automatically be a woman. But remember that there are those, who think another way, no? So take note that your gender identity is not determined by your sex assigned at birth, because gender identity reflects a deeply felt and experienced sense of one's own gender, who you really are. So no one tells you who you are. No? So if you are referring to gender identity, there is what we call cisgender. Cisgender or cis is the term used to describe people whose gender identity or expression aligns with those typically associated with the sex assigned to them at birth. So if your sex assigned at birth is male, you identify yourself as a boy or a man, growing up as a man, and your gender expression is masculine. If your sex assigned at birth is female, you identify yourself as a girl when you were a child, and growing up or as an adult, you identify yourself as a woman and you express yourself in a feminine way. So these are all cisgender, no? But we have to remember that this is a common way of thinking also. But we have to remember that there are those people who are transgender, no? Transgender or trans is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity or expression is different from those typically associated with their sex assigned at birth to them at birth. So we have to remember that many people know that they are trans from a very young age, even as a child. Even a child as young as 3 years old can already identify if if he or she of they are, or they are trans, no? For others, it might be something that they fully understand about themselves, no? Until later in life. Okay, no? It's okay not to know from the start or to be questioning your gender identity. And no matter what, your gender identity is valid, no? For some people, they just identify it as they are. But for some people, it takes a long time, no? So as I said, no matter what, your gender identity is valid, no? So let us take a look at transgender. It is, take note, I learned this from Ma'am Natsi. Ma'am Natsi was my teacher, no? And my doctoral program. Use it as an adjective, not a noun. So example, you call one is transgender, one is a transgender man, not one is a transgender, no? Use transgender, not transgendered. So it's because it takes some time for people to, you know, be knowing their identity. There is what we call also the gender transitioning. So transitioning is a process of changing, you know, the way you look and how people see and treat you so that you become the gender you feel on the inside. Now, transitioning can mean a lot of different things to different people. It can involve medical treatment or intervention, or perhaps what we call a gender affirming surgery, and of course taking hormones. No, it can involve changing your name or your preferred pronouns. It's not only limited to he or she, but some gender queer, you know, or queer people, or even transgender would use the pronouns they, them, and their. No, it can involve changing the appearance and the dress that you are wearing, and it can involve also coming out to your friends and family, and it can be a long way or a long process or an ongoing process all along. So it can be something that happens over a short period of time. But remember that when you are gender transitioning or someone is gender transitioning, that person goes through internal, social, legal, and medical. So in the Philippines, we do not have any legal recourse to change somebody else's gender or, gender marker in the documents, no? And even the change of name, that's not allowed yet in the Philippines. I know in more progressive countries about gender, like the Scandinavian countries, no, trans women and trans men can even change their names and their gender marker in their identity or in their what we call cards or official documents. No, so there are actually two types of transgender: the trans women, no, or the sex assigned at birth is male. No, they have a penis, but their gender identity, the way they look at themselves, they are women. No? It might not really reflect the sex assigned at birth. So that's it, the trans women. So an example is this one, Gina Rosero. Gina Rosero is a model, no? It's a supermodel in the United States, but Gina Rosero was born in the Philippines, no? As a male, no? And then Gina Rosero was not very, open to discuss about those things at first, but she realized that it's important for her to come out as a trans woman to also provide inspiration to others to, reveal or to inspire others to be who they are. No, if we have trans women, we also have what we call trans man. No, sex assigned at birth is female. No, they have a vagina, but they look at themselves as a man. So we have a very popular singer, no, or artist by the name of Guerra, no? Guerra is now called Mr. Guerra, and his preferred pronoun is he and his. No? So when we are talking also about this one, we have the gender queer. Actually, many people feel that they don't fit in these two categories, man or woman, and they might feel they are a mixture of the two or something else that cannot be clearly defined as a person's gender identity. Perhaps you're saying, not man or woman? Yes, there are people who feel that they are somewhere in between or a mixture of both. No, it's a huge umbrella that for gender identities other than a man or a woman. No, and refer to those who transgress gender distinctions. They refer to those who transgress gender distinctions, who challenge the socially constructed gender binary. So they are called gender queer. That's why it's important to take note that we don't misgender people. Transgender people express themselves in many different ways. Some people use their dress, behavior, even mannerisms to live as the gender that feels right for them. Some people take hormones and may take surgery or gender affirming surgery to change their body so it matches their gender identity. Some transgender people reject the traditional understanding of gender as divided just between males and females. So they identify just as transgender or genderqueer, gender fluid, or something else. So you see that these are really big words, but we have to understand that gender is diverse. We're all surrounded by diversity, no? And then of course, so we have SOGSO, no, sexual orientation, gender identity, and then the E, which is what we call gender expression. Now, gender expression, this involves the whole person also because it involves the different ways that we communicate about our gender to others. This could also include the way we dress, what haircut you have or we have, how we use our voice. Do we use the big voice or do we use the small voice? No? What's your name? What name you want to be called and how you act in public, especially when you're dealing with other people. So gender expression includes the way you dress up, the way your mannerisms, and even the choices of your the haircut and the way you actually, if you want to put on makeup, so that includes that one. So how do we define gender expression? Gender expression refers to the external manifestation of a person's gender identity, which may or may not conform to socially defined behaviors and characteristics typically associated with being either masculine or feminine. Therefore, we also have what we call gender non-conforming because we're used to binary thinking that, a male sex assigned at birth should be masculine and a female sex assigned at birth should be feminine. But we have to remember that there are those who are gender non-conforming because they do not fit neatly into a category. So if you have the feminine and the masculine, there is also what we call the androgynous. No? Androgynous, they identify and are presenting themselves as neither distinguishably masculine or feminine. How does it look like here? So perhaps this person, Julian Culas identifies himself or themselves as what? Androgynous model, Filipino model. Sometimes he is comfortable wearing feminine clothes. Sometimes he is comfortable wearing, masculine clothes. So we're now going to sex characteristics. So sex characteristics, we refer to them as genitalia because they reflect whether somebody or someone is biologically or physically female, as well as external genitalia. Sex characteristics also include your hormones, your chromosomes, your body shape, your voice, and your hair. So sex is the marker recorded in our birth certificate. So it's just male or female. So that's why it's also called sex assigned at birth because it is based on external genitalia. So we know that the two, there are two only. Some of you are aware only of the two, the male or the female. But we have to remember that there are people who are intersex. Intersex people are born with the anatomy, reproductive organs, and or chromosome patterns that do not fit the typical definition of males and females. No? A person who is intersex is born with sex characteristics that are not completely male or female. So we don't call them hermaphrodite. We call them intersex because hermaphrodite, like homosexual, is also what? Derogatory. So the proper term is intersex. And there's nothing wrong to be intersex because it's nature, right? It's biological. It's physiological. So perhaps you're asking, is there somebody in the Philippines an intersex? Yes. Jeff Kagandahan. Jeff Kagandahan was born Jennifer Kagandahan, but growing up, Jennifer Kagandahan noticed that he doesn't fit well into the way he looks, and then he filed a case in the lower courts for a change of name and the change of sex marker in the birth certificate, and he lost the case in the what you call this, in another court. But Jeff Kagandahan went all the way to the Supreme Court, and for the first time in the Philippines, there was a change of name to Jennifer to Jeff Kagandahan, and the sex marker from female to male. Okay, so recapping all of these things, no? Sexual orientation. So let's put this all together. Sexual orientation is about who you are emotionally, physically, and sexually attracted to. Gender identity is about who you think and feel about yourself and your gender. So it's about your brain, no? Ito, dito. Gender expression is about how you communicate your gender identity to the outside world. And of course, sex characteristics is about your biology, such as your genitalia, your sex hormones, your body shape. And of course, all of them combined make up our unique SOGS, no? And everybody has SOGSC. So it is a misconception, no? So this gender elephant, we have our own version at the UP Center for Women's and Gender Studies, and it's a copyrighted material, no? So, hello, I'm gender Malaya. No, Malaya is our own interpretation of Filipino SOGSC. So it's just only a recapitulation of what we've said. So gender equality, no? So this one is really very important. So we no longer use, no? Of course, we use the gender elephant, but since we already have a copyrighted icon under the Center for Women's and Gender Studies, we want to call it Malaya because we feel that everybody should be free. Malaya means freedom, freedom to express ourselves, freedom to, pursue our interests, freedom to contribute to people, to contribute to families and to societies as well. So we distinguish sexual orientation from gender identity. So lesbians can identify as women and gays can identify as men. Lesbians and gays can be cisgender. They can also be, expressing themselves in a masculine or in a feminine way. So we distinguish sexual orientation and gender identity from gender expression. A cisgender, heterosexual female or a trans woman can express themselves in a masculine way. So perhaps someone who are cisgender or heterosexual, but they express themselves in a very masculine way, but they are not lesbians. So we don't mix them up together, no? A cisgender heterosexual male or trans man can express themselves, no, in a feminine way also. So it's not really limited. That's why, gender is also fluid. So we are not boxed together, or we're not supposed to think in binary ways. So perhaps you're asking, do you have a SOGS? So I'm going to give myself as an example. My sex assigned at birth is female. No, my sexual orientation is heterosexual. I'm only attracted to males all my life. At this point, I'm more than 50 years old and I'm only attracted to male. I'm married. I'm happily married. So I look at myself, even growing up as a girl, and now that I'm adult, I look at myself as a woman and I express myself in a feminine way. So everyone has SOGS, but we have to remember the diversity in SOG. Remember that SOG is fluid, no? This means that there are lots of different options with no right or wrong way to be. Also, things can change over time, and SOGSC combines with other factors. So take note that there are no right or wrong way to be. There's no right or wrong way to be, rather, because human sexuality is diverse. And therefore, gender is a development issue. But since we're talking about SSE and we want to, to include gender equality, gender justice, and even, social inclusion, we have to understand another concept, which is intersectionality. So SOGS, or SOGSE, when combined with other factors such as our age, where we live, whether we are rich or poor, whether where we work, for example, our religion, or even our disability, no? They, when combined together, that could also mean that that person can experience overlapping and intersecting social identities of related systems of oppression, domination, and discrimination. And we have to remember the impact of, you know, all of these things can be worse for some women and men due to their ethnicity, age, disability, social origin, even religion, even the color of your skin. You can be discriminated on the basis of the color of your skin, or even your language, right? Even your gender identity, your sexual orientation, and many other factors. So when we are working with people and we want to have development, no, want to have social development, we need to remember that we are not only talking about gender. We're not only talking about the sex assigned at birth. Because if, for example, a person is a woman and that woman lives, for example, in Africa, for example, and then that person does not have access to education. So that person has low socioeconomic status. So the compounding impacts of the intersecting, intersexual identities would be more for those who are, because of all of these intersectional identities. So I'm going to show you a picture and I want you to answer my question. What have you noticed about the picture? What can you notice about the picture? Huh? Would someone want to answer my question? What have you noticed about the picture on the slide? Beans, are there inequality?
There are people po
Yeah.
in the chat box. I'm sorry.
Inequality. Why is there inequality there? How is inequality manifested in the picture?
Can I answer?
Yes, please answer.
Yeah, because if you see the person with the disability, the wall is too high and that person is not able to actually watch the game. And the person is just cheering because they see the other two who is able to stand on some sort of a platform to be able to watch it. So so the walls are all too high for the person with disability to watch.
Yes, so it was also connected to Shigeru's lecture, right? But it's different. Like, for example, do you have that kind of program in Japan, no, or in other parts of the country? How do we provide access to persons with disability, or persons coming from another religion, no, or persons coming from geographically isolated areas? No? So how do we make things better for these people? Let us take a look. There. What have you noticed? Making it better. Can someone answer? How did we make things better for people? In the picture.
Can I answer?
Yes, you can answer.
Yes, in this picture, the able person has been elevated. The one with the blue shirt, the one he has a box has given to the able person.
Okay, we call them person with disability. So it's important that we call them correctly also, no? And they're called person with disability. Yeah, that's correct. But we only did not give that person with disability the platform. We provided a ramp, giving that person only the box, no, so that the person can see it. And if that person was only given a box without, the ramp, that person cannot use that one. So the types of interventions that we need to do should also see the other intersectional identities. It is not enough that we provide them work, but what kind of work is important? What kind of policies do we have in order for this person to enjoy the game as well, right? So there are, answers here like from Rodmark Justice. Yes. Josephine, si Ma'am Parilla said, person with disability might have other needs, no? And then equality towards equity, equity towards equality. We give each one the chance, no, equal chance. But for those who have less, we should give a little bit more and appropriately. No, just giving the box to this person is not enough because that person using the wheelchair cannot use the box. So that box needs to be, fitted, no, or tailored to have a ramp so that the person can use it properly. Now, so how can we make this the best? You see, we provided that. How? How do we make it the best? How do we really implement this and think about intersectional identities, thinking about gender equality and equity? No? So let us take a look at this one. What happened? What happened to the third and last picture?
Remove the wall.
We remove the wall. So we provide everyone equal chances so that you don't need a ramp, you don't need any other devices for that one, but they can actually participate equally and enjoy the fruits of development. How are these things available in your own organizations? Are you also having, or do you have policies that are similar, no barriers to contribute and participate and enjoy the fruits of economic development, right? So it's something to think about when we are dealing with a lot of people. Like for example, si Ma'am Prim, she said, in the Philippines, there is a law on non-discrimination for persons with disabilities and other unprivileged person or marginalized persons for that matter. So take a look at this one. So from the third picture, from the first picture, we made it better. But for the third picture, it is something that all of us should aspire to do in our own ways. Even if we do it only in our organizations, no? This is very much present in Shigeru's lecture today, what happened in Japan. But of course, Japan is a different, what you call this, a different culture, a different socioeconomic, status. They are high-income countries. But what about those in low-income countries? What are the initiatives to to give persons equal opportunities for development and even decent work standard of living as well? So looking at this again, no, let us take a look at this one, no? Lesbian, LGBTQI, you've heard about this, no? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and queer, and intersex, no? We all have the right to define and proud of our SOGSC. There is no need to stereotype or harm people because everyone is unique, and we must all recognize and accept and celebrate this diversity. Let us support our children, our workers, their families towards human flourishing. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Thank you very much, everyone. And if you have questions, I'm ready to answer your questions.
No, thank you very much, Doc Che. Let's give her our warmest round of virtual applause. This is really an insightful discussion, especially to those who are not yet introduced or who haven't been introduced to these concepts. Actually, Doc Che, may question na kanina si William, how about the safety? That's his question. Based from the drawing that you have shared.
Safety?
He's asking about the safety.
Safety of what? Safety of the...
Yeah. William, would you like to expound more on?
Okay, I mean, based on the picture, right? Because you remove the wall, but how about the safety? The ball might get hit one of the viewers. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good question, William. That's also a good observation. For some, no, we can put a wire mesh, something like that, but it also somehow provides the barrier for people to totally participate in all of those things. So, well, we can establish rules as well and appropriate policies so that they will have also some sort of a social protection.
Thank you very much, Dr. I hope that answers your question. William. And yeah, according to Prime, there in the Philippines there is a law on non-discrimination for persons with disabilities and other underprivileged persons. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Prime. Okay. So yes, please feel free to uh, put on your questions on the chat box, or if you have questions and you would like to share it live, you can raise your hand, and we are more than happy to call you. Okay. Okay. So we have here a question actually. It's from WhatsApp, Doc Chel. Okay. So the question is about how can we become a more inclusive SSC organization? Say for example, in their country, this is not the Philippines, but this is from an anonymous sender. Okay. So how can we ensure that the organization is inclusive in terms of accepting people of different genders, aside, say for example, from women and men within their SSC organization? What do you think is the best mechanism to go about with that?
Well, that's a very good question. If we want to really be inclusive and giving everyone an equal opportunity, well, it starts from your policies. It starts also from your hiring, no? And also, you really accept people in terms of their ability, in terms of their qualification. So we don't discriminate, for example, two persons, for example, you have an applicant who is a male and an applicant who is a female. So what are the types of discriminations usually experienced by women when they are applying for a job or a position? So some people would say, well, let's not hire women because they will get pregnant and they will always be absent because they're taking care of their children. So that's not the way providing women equal opportunities for economic, opportunities. So instead of discriminating the woman because she is taking care of a young child or she is pregnant, why not think of a daycare center or a child minding center where that child or where that woman can, leave the child or the baby while she's working in your company. So this thing. So those are just some examples where we can ensure that women or even persons with disabilities will have, opportunities for equality, no, or opportunities for work in your company. So it starts from providing access and determining what they really need, no, and how you could possibly work with them. Consultation is very important. It's important that you know what their needs are. No, it's important that you ask them how they are. And then, for example, we are not supposed to discriminate also males in the sense that if they have children also, no, and they want to bring their children to work because their wives are busy with other things at that point, we should allow them. And we're not supposed to laugh at men bringing their children to work or in a daycare center. So those are just some of the examples that I can give you. And then also, for example, you're going to hire a person with disability. So we have to also see whether our desks, no, or our workspaces are, can accommodate people who are using the wheelchair or those who are using the crutches, no, and so on and so forth. So those are just some of the examples. Even if you do not have existing laws, no, like the Philippines, because in the Philippines we have an existing law, the Magna Carta of Disabled Persons. We actually are required to have at least 1% of the total population of the company to hire at least 1% person with disability. We also have laws in the Philippines about solo parents, no, whether they are single by choice or whether they are widows or widowers. So we don't discriminate them on that basis. They are allowed to participate, and they are allowed to participate, no, economically.
Thank you very much. That is a very comprehensive answer, Doc Shell. We have here a sharing from William. Actually, first, it's a question. How about the persons living with HIV community? Their access to work and access to health. In Malaysia, there is still they are. I think he's trying to say, in Malaysia, they are still facing huge discrimination on persons living with HIV community when they are trying to access health services and facilities. Any thoughts on that, Doctor?
Yeah, so here, even in the Philippines, William, we still have stigma, no? When persons with disability, person with HIV or living with HIV, they are still discriminated in the Philippines. But I will share with you what happened in where I live in Quezon City. It's one of the cities, no, huge cities in the National Capital Region. Our Mayor Joy Belmonte, has this evening clinic or night clinic for HIV positive patients working in Quezon City, no, or living in Quezon City. That night clinic, no, accepts, no, or treats people with HIV. You know why? Because many people are asleep at night, so they won't know who are going to that clinic. And then we have that confidentiality also, no, those who are treating them can have signed a confidentiality agreement, no. And then some organizations, they provide also counseling. Like, for example, at the UP Center for Women's and Gender Studies, we have a feminist counseling program. If we know somebody who would like to go counseling because that person has HIV or living in HIV, we provide that. Even Ma'am Natsi and I, we do not know who are availing the services for feminist counseling. So those are some of the initiatives that we have done in the Philippines, specifically in Quezon City and at the Center for Women's and Gender Studies, when dealing, no, or addressing the needs of people with HIV or living with HIV.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. We have a question from Caprime. How does religion contradicts with SOGS? Because the pastors in place call these SOGS persons as abnormal persons. How are we going to advocate for their rights as human beings? This is a good question. Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, Caprime, we're always asked this question because religion, they say, contradicts with our concepts of sex and gender, especially the SOGS. And there are so many misconceptions about SOGS. Some groups would say the LGBT, no, individuals, the LGBT groups actually concocted this SOGSC, or they invented the SOGSC because they want to justify their being gay or lesbian. But we disagree with that. So there's always the separation of the state and the state and the church, no. And if the church does not want to recognize that, I think, because whether you are a man or a woman, a male or a female, an LGBT, no, you are first and foremost a human being. Therefore, all LGBT rights are human rights. All women's rights are human rights. So we just have to make a point that there is nothing wrong if you are a SOGI, if you are an LGBT. So we always need to provide that kind. And I think that if we really want to be truthful to the teachings of the church, we're not supposed to discriminate, and we have to leave our old beliefs of discriminating people, and abusing people simply because of their sex and gender. And yes, it is true that Pope Francis has issued a statement about this issue, and it's true that the SOGSC bill has passed into law already, but Caprime, it needs pa an IRR, or an ano pangalan nun? What's do you call that IRR? It's the implementing rules and regulations. Yeah, we really need to work on that, but it's good. That's a good one, but of course we need to have and finalize and really popularize this SOGI law.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Doc Shell. Actually, I know that this will open a lot of questions, and these are all valid and relevant questions. And with that, since Dr. Chell is our course teacher for Module 5, we are going to open an online discussion forum for questions which might arise after her discussion. And Dr. Chell is more than happy. We as well. We will be more than happy to answer all these questions on the online discussion forum that we will be opening after the session. Okay, because we do not want to render overtime again, just like last week. Okay. With that, let's all give our warmest virtual round
Vince,
of applause.
I would just like to hindi pa siya passed into law pala, the SOGS
Okay.
bill. It's not yet passed. Sorry.
Yes, we're waiting for that,
We're
and we
waiting for
hope.
it.
Yes,
Hopefully.
na-excite si Doc Shell about that. Pero
Oo,
yes, we're
na-excite
waiting.
ako. Sorry. I got
We're waiting
excited.
for that. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you
We're
very much for
logging for it,
clarifying.
actually. No law yet. No law. Just a correction.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doc Shell. Let's give our warmest round of virtual applause to Dr. Excelsa Sitongson for this comprehensive lecture on SOGS. Okay. Thank you very much, Doc Shell.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
With that, we are now transitioning to last but not the least of our resource persons. Let's all give our warmest round of virtual applause to Dr. Nathalie Lourdes Africa Versailles. Doc Natsi, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Vince. Good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. May I please have a show of hands? I'd like to know who among us in this room have gone through modules 5 and 6 in the Dakila learning platform, just so we have an idea. Okay, I know Rodmark because I've already commented on your comment. And I know Hera as well. So only 5. So none of you except for Rodmark. Okay, so that gives us an idea of where we are right now. Okay, because in an ideal world, you should have already perused the materials we posted for modules 5 and 6 for this session. But we understand the many constraints on your time. So we understand really that it's difficult to keep a pace with the modules. But my suggestion is, after you complete the modules, you could return to this session. Because Vince, you will be posting a video of this. Am I not right?
Yes, the
Vince?
recorded
Yes.
session. Yes, the recorded session will be uploaded after the session.
Because I think that they will have a better appreciation, particularly of my portion, if they have gone through modules 5 and 6. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Vince. I've actually been checking the discussion forum because I was excited to interact with the participants, but not very many of you have already responded to the activity questions, but that's okay. I'll still wait for those. Now I'm going to share my screen. And the title of my presentation is Engendering SSE. So again, good afternoon. In the asynchronous portion of Module 6, we are supposed to learn, or we have learned about, what a gender perspective is, the tools of gender and development analysis, women and work, and women's economic empowerment. These are critical because they are the takeoff points of the gender and SSE advocacy. As we already know, women, because they are women, face gender-specific challenges. So this afternoon, and I promise we will end at 5, we will delve deeply into engendering SSE via a feminist social solidarity economy, or feminist SSE. We must always assert that a gender perspective be integrated in all development practices. And this holds true even in a people-centered, humane economy, such as the social solidarity economy, where women can still be discriminated against, marginalized, and subordinated if we do not pay particular attention to gender issues. Again, a gender perspective entails both an examination and transformation of unequal gender relations. So again, it's an examination and transformation of unequal gender relations. It cannot be emphasized enough that our approach must be intersectional, and Dr. Tongson already discussed the intersectionality approach, with an acute sensitivity to the needs and interests that arise from those who have other subordinated or needs that arise from other subordinated identities, such as those based on class, race, ethnicity, disability, religion, SOGS, etc. Because these identities interact and reinforce each other. So they interact with and reinforce each other. So the goal is not only for women to meet their practical gender needs, such as employment and income, but also their strategic gender interests of women's empowerment, gender equality, and gender justice. So this is the objective of my presentation. It is to enhance our knowledge about how gender can be effectively integrated in the social solidarity economy towards gender justice, gender equality, and women's empowerment. This is not just economic empowerment. It can also be personal, social, and political empowerment. And then I will begin with a presentation, and then we will segue to a plenary discussion of some pre-identified topics I have written out. So this is my presentation outline. I will discuss the differences between inequality, equality, equity, and justice, which builds on the infographics that Dr. Tongson shared earlier. And I'll also introduce the framework of feminist SSE as a pathway towards gender justice. I will briefly discuss women's economic empowerment, demonstrate how a feminist SSE can facilitate this, and discuss what I believe a truly feminist SSE should be. So this is still actually in many ways an ideal for many enterprises. I will end with some recommendations and declarations on gender and SSE. So I'd like to share this infographic, which I love so very much because I think it depicts the differences among these four concepts very clearly. So I have an explanation for this schematic. So let's take the tree as representing the social structure of gender inequality, which is comprised of assumptions, beliefs, attitudes, and stereotypes about women and men, which result in unequal and unjust institutional practices, such as discrimination against women, their marginalization and subordination across various institutional sites like the family, the community, the market, the state, in enterprises, etc. Now let's imagine the fruits on the trees representing opportunities, and the person on the left of each diagram as a man, and the person on the right as a woman. The person on the right could also represent members of the LGBTQI community as sexual and gender minorities. In the first panel, which represents inequality, it is clear that because the tree is skewed towards the left, there is unequal access to opportunities, and the man has easier access. This depicts the current situation all over the world, as evident in the World Economic Forum's yearly Global Gender Gap Report, particularly in the areas of economic participation and opportunity and political empowerment. It is a fact that gender relations are unequal and hierarchical, and men have more power and privileges than women. In the second panel, which represents equality with a question mark, we note how equally distributing tools and assistance, as represented by the ladders of equal height, does not benefit the woman, given her initial disadvantaged position. By not recognizing this, we could say that the intervention is gender blind. In the third panel, which represents equity, women's disadvantaged position is addressed by an intervention that identifies and addresses the inequality, as represented by the higher ladder given to the woman. We could say that approaches or interventions such as this are gender responsive and are a significant advancement on gender blind approaches which disregard or maintain gender-based discrimination and disadvantages. However, gender responsive approaches remain limited in that they do not confront the underlying structure of inequality that produces the unequal power relations and outcomes between genders. You will note that the tree remains skewed towards the left. Metaphorically, we could say that gender-responsive approaches are merely palliative because while they alleviate the symptoms of gender inequality, they are not curative because they do not address its underlying causes. Gender-based discrimination, marginalization, and subordination will persist unless we challenge and transform the unequal gender ideology that allocates more rights, power, privileges to men than to women, and the institutional practices that ensue or are a result of this unequal gender ideology. In the fourth panel, which represents justice, you will see that the tree has been straightened, which then makes it appropriate to equally distribute tools and assistance. Interventions that aim to change the unequal gender structure are gender transformative. What is truly required is a transformation in the unequal gender structure of existing norms and values about gender, gender roles and stereotypes, institutional policies and practices that reproduce and reinforce male dominance and female subordination, or patriarchy in short. The unequal gender structure results in the unequal access to, control over, and ownership of resources, the unequal gender division of labor, the discrimination, exclusion, and marginalization of women, and women's unequal power in decision-making vis-a-vis men. Approaches that are gender transformative explicitly challenge gender norms and the power asymmetries between genders. These require a critical examination of gender roles and the gender division of labor, the engagement of men, and the promotion of positive masculinities, a redistribution of resources and opportunities to women, the advancement of the social, economic, and political empowerment of women, their full participation in decision-making, as well as other practices you can think of that directly confront unequal power relations between women and men. We can utilize a feminist SSE as a pathway towards gender justice. Let us please not forget that SSE is about transforming all unequal structures that maintain and worsen poverty and inequality. This is not just about sexism, but also classism, ableism, ageism, ethnicism, heterosexism, etc. Now I go to my next slide, which is about women's economic empowerment. According to the Philippine Commission on Women, women's economic empowerment entails access to and control over high-value productive resources such as information, credit, loans, or financial assistance, training, markets, technology, and increased control over the business environment. Decent jobs and humane working conditions while enjoying benefits from opportunities to create wealth. It is about raising the level of participation that will enable women to make decisions based on their own views and perspectives. It's about increased access to economic and/or enterprise-related programs and services, better support services for women's economic and enterprise endeavors, less constraints on women as a result of gender-responsive roles and expectations by actors in the supply chain, resulting in better incomes, expanded capabilities, and life opportunities for women. Can a feminist social solidarity economy promote women's economic empowerment? The answer is yes. Additionally, it is not just women's economic empowerment that a feminist solidarity, social solidarity economy promotes, but also personal, social, and political empowerment. Now, let's talk about the feminist social solidarity economy. So what is this? So it is one that integrates feminist economics perspectives and social solidarity economy perspectives. And I'll start with the feminist economics perspective. So this has noted how mainstream or neoliberal economics disregards women's gendered realities, and it aims to improve their economic condition. It has flagged the blindness of mainstream economics to women's unpaid work in households and communities, gender stereotypes about work, and the unequal gender division of labor, wherein women bear the principal responsibility for all household tasks and childcare. And also, it is blind to the unequal power relations between women and men, because it assumes that all economic actors are homogeneous. You know, they're all rational, atomistic, self-interested, or in other words, selfish. Additionally, mainstream or neoliberal economics assumes that a rational, atomistic, self-interested actor, which is indicative of a male-centered or androcentric bias, because we do not associate these characteristics with women. It ignores intersectionality of identities, or that people are differentiated on the basis not only of gender, but also class, race, ethnicity, religion, ability or disability, sexuality, etc. And that these identities interact and affect the life chances, choices, opportunities, and outcomes of people. Mainstream economics prioritizes economic over social needs, which is the maximization of gross domestic product, right? And then it ignores the environmental costs of economic growth. A feminist social solidarity economy thus incorporates feminist perspectives on gender and the economy in the social solidarity economy, and redresses or corrects women's adverse or negative gender-specific experiences of mainstream economic processes. Now, I will distinguish the neoliberal actor vis-a-vis the solidarity actor. The neoliberal actor, again, is rational, atomistic, self-interested, or individualistic, competitive, and aggressive, which are considered masculine qualities. The social solidarity actor, on the other hand, values and practices other-oriented behavior, such as empathy, altruism, nurturance, care and concern for others, cooperation, reciprocity and mutuality, generosity, unity, and harmony, which are considered feminine qualities. Therefore, the social solidarity economy is by its very nature feminine. But what is feminine is actually devalued. It's made the basis of women's subordination in society. So we hope that the social solidarity economy will value what is feminine, rather than devalue it. Engendering the social solidarity economy is also about valuing and propagating the feminine, such as solidarity values and care work. Because when we do care work, we do it out of love and concern for other people. Based on my dissertation, where I did case studies of 3 economic organizations, I have identified feminist SSE practices, which I will show in this slide and the succeeding 7 slides. Women are seen as capable and productive workers. There is inclusion within organizations. So the sense of inclusivity is apparent in the resources made available to all the women members. A production center with equipment, training, marketing assistance, materials, loans, and cash advances. The organizational culture is one that is compassionate, caring, and mindful of women's welfare and that of their families, where members feel welcome and free to articulate their problems and needs, where their concerns are given value, where there is open communication between the leaders and the members, where there is solidarity, cooperation, trust, unity, mutual help and concern, closeness and camaraderie among the members. So these are from my data. Okay, so it was from the women. These are from the women. I did not concoct this or interpret. Okay, this was, I just translated into English. The personal characteristics of the organization's leaders are also vital as they are key in shaping organizational culture. These are kindness, commitment to helping the members, and readiness to render assistance, being welcoming, empathetic, patient, and non-discriminatory, being understanding about their situation, not just as workers, but also as women with many responsibilities and mothers, being humane, compassionate, and responsive to the members' needs, being approachable about personal and financial problems, and openness to criticisms and suggestions. These are the financial policies that have proven very beneficial to the women. Loans and cash advances for materials purchase and emergencies, easy credit at a low interest rate, a Damayan fund, and microfinance savings that can be drawn from for family emergencies. Damayan is a fund where all the members contribute amounts to when there is an emergency, where we say there's a death among a family member of one of the members, etc. Weekly salaries and payments paid once a week with no delay, overtime pay, 13th month pay, patronage refund and dividends, educational loans at low interest rates, immediate financial assistance for members who figure in accidents or are affected by natural calamities. I will emphasize the importance of loans, cash advances, the Damayan Fund, and financial assistance for emergencies because they ensure that the capital for the economic activity is not diverted. As for programs and services, the women mentioned the following as integral: capability building in design, product development, business management on skills such as costing, sales, marketing, bookkeeping, accounting, budgeting, etc. Gender sensitivity training, leadership training, and also training on organizing. The provision of marketing assistance was highlighted as very, very important because it allows the women to concentrate on production and not concern themselves about finding markets for their products. Solidarity among the members is cultivated and nurtured through regular meetings, general assemblies, celebrations, activities such as training and seminars, out-of-town trips, which they really look forward to and enjoy, and attendance as an organization in barangay, municipal, and city events. So these provide opportunities for bonding. The principles of cooperatives and the organization's vision, mission, and goals are reinforced by the leaders in discussions with the members. Members are also visited and monitored by the leaders, which is important for members who live far away.
Because I've been cooking every day, vegetarian.
Vince, may I ask you to please mute the participants? Vince, thank you.
Yes, 1 moment.
Thank you, Vince. The unequal gender division of labor is based on the man as breadwinner and woman as homemaker model, wherein women bear the principal responsibility of accomplishing practically all the reproductive and care work for their households. A feminist SSE counters the unequal gender division of labor through its support for women's income-generating activities, which, based on my research, can lead to a more equitable sharing of household tasks between women and men in households. A feminist SSE is responsive to women's practical gender needs and their strategic gender interests, and it is also gender transformative. It meets women's practical gender need for a livelihood and other practical gender needs and familial needs such as educational and emergency loans. Additionally, it strives to address women's strategic gender interests, namely women's empowerment, gender justice, and gender equality. It aims to transform unequal power relations between women and men. The material resources, as well as the intangible resources, such as group cooperation and group solidarity, provided are used as entry points to promote the strategic gender interests. Again, because you have to memorize this, of women's empowerment, gender justice, and gender equality. A feminist SSE is intersectional and inclusive. It addresses other systems of inequality based on not just gender, no, but also class, race, ethnicity, disability, religion, SOGS, etc. Because all these other systems of oppression have or are characterized by unequal power relations. A feminist SSE, very importantly, addresses the issue of class because it is a mode of production which is comprised of forces of production and relations of production, which is premised on solidarity and cooperation, and where the means of production are collectively owned by the members of the cooperative or the enterprise. It averts or avoids the exploitative relations of production, intrinsic or inherent in the capitalist mode of production, and the material conditions that foster class differentiation and the contradictions and struggles between classes, because there is not a small group of people who own the means of production. It is owned by all the members. Given the socialization of women into other-oriented behavior, we can say that solidarity is organic. I put that in quotation marks because women are not born other-oriented. We are socialized by society, into caring for others. So we can say that solidarity is organic in women and in their organizations. Thus, women must play leadership roles in the social solidarity economy. So I have some recommendations. We should utilize an integrated approach to women's empowerment by including in SSE initiatives awareness raising on women's rights, capacity building on organizing, networking, lobbying, advocacy, social protection, occupational safety and health, etc. There must be critical consciousness raising through trainings and seminars on gender sensitivity, the gender and development approach to development, women's rights as women and as workers, sexual and reproductive health and rights, and violence against women. And SRHR and VOW in particular can affect women's ability to do productive work. It is this conscientization, which consists not only of critical awareness, but also action to challenge and dismantle oppressive gender, class, and other systems of oppression and domination. That will make the social solidarity economy truly, truly feminist. The social solidarity economy is a socio-economic order, and economics, or how we organize ourselves in order to meet our material needs, can be utilized for social transformation by changing consciousness, attitudes, or how we think and feel about things, behaviors and practices. Engendering SSE entails engendering the entire supply chain. Negotiations and decision-making within and between its segments must be conducted fairly, equitably, democratically, transparently, and with accountability, unimpeded by hierarchies generated by gender, class, and other intersectional identities. To facilitate the full participation of women workers in this economy, support for their reproductive work is imperative through arrangements made for childcare by enterprises, communities, the state, or through more equitable sharing of household tasks with men in the family. This is the care diamond. You will see from the diagram that care does not necessarily need to be individualized at the household level and can be community-based. The state can provide financial support for social enterprise initiatives that alleviate women's unpaid care work. So this can be a community-based social enterprise. These include not just daycare and healthcare, but also community-based laundry services, for instance, and many others. The market and the state can step in through daycare centers in private enterprises and publicly owned daycare services. No, publicly provided, daycare services. The gender division of labor that is based on stereotypes and assumed facilities of women and men must be eliminated, allowing women and men to enter areas of work in the reproductive or in the household or in the productive spheres, wherever they are so inclined. Reproductive work or the care work that women do for their families must be valued and not seen as inferior or even easy work. It is reproductive work that supports and sustains all activities of the economy, and not just the economy, but the entire society. For justice at the intersection of gender and class, redistributive measures favorable to low-income women along the supply chain can be actualized. Investments can be channeled to low-income women's enterprises. The prices of production inputs can be lowered by SSE suppliers for women's enterprises. And low-income women's products can be prioritized in distribution, marketing, sales, and consumption with the assistance of SSE economy advocates and cooperators from the public, private, and social sectors. I would just like to share some declarations on SSE. So this one in particular is found in the RIPES website. So RIPES, where Shigeru, our Tanaka, our first speaker, is a member of the Joint Coordination Committee. So RIPES is a global network of continental networks committed to the promotion of SSE, which the ASEC, or the Asian Solidarity Economy Council, is part of. This declaration is by the Chantier de l'Économie Sociale in Quebec, which reiterates many of the issues and priorities on gender and SSE that we have already identified. It aims to rectify issues of current inequality and considers that gender equity is an essential condition for the successful development of the social and solidarity economy. It is essential to recognize the contribution of women to social and economic development for its true worth, especially by recognizing the importance of equal pay for equal work, while remaining sensitive to the relevant differences linked to womanhood, such as our biological functions, which is also a social role of getting pregnant, giving birth, breastfeeding, etc. In order to be a real factor for improving living conditions, the development model, the SSE model, should be based on supporting increased autonomy and involvement of women and categorically rejecting all forms of discrimination. Full development of all people needs to reconcile work, studies, personal life, and the realities of their families. So there's a recognition that our lives are multidimensional and we have many other demands on our time and energy. The importance of unpaid work needs to be recognized as a factor that supports the social cohesion of our communities, irrespective of whether the work is carried out on a voluntary basis or within the family. Invisible work can contribute to precariousness and must be overcome. Workers, both women and men, have the right to organize and demand decent working conditions. And the SSE, given the characteristics and practice of participatory management, is a means of realizing this. And in the declaration, there are commitments to, first, raise awareness within the community partners of the social economy on the importance of documenting and communicating the differentiated aspects encountered by women and men in the social economy in order to adjust practice if and when or where necessary. Be aware of the stakes and practices of social economy enterprises that have specific impacts on women. Include, as and where appropriate, a differentiated gender-based analysis or a gender analysis in considerations and work at the beginning of all projects. So we should do a gender analysis at the beginning of the project. Work together with our partners to contribute to the progress of practice in social economy organizations on the issue of equal pay gender parity in our representative and decision-making bodies, and use the experience of the SSE in work with partners aiming to improve equity in working condition and life in general. So that's the declaration on gender equity, no, in SSE. And I have just this other declaration. So during the 2013 RIPES meeting held in Manila, this declaration was approved. Dean Inday of Reneo, Kuya Ben, or Dr. Ben Quinones, that's Dr. Inday of Reneo, and I were active in this meeting, and Dean Inday and I were part of the discussions that led to this declaration. I will go through just the key statements and proposals. Women are the majority of people in the SSE, strong pillars for changes in society, but still invisible. Women's rights must be ensured at every level, including reproductive rights and all other rights. The freedom to be, the right to be free from gender-based violence. A gender perspective on SSE must take into account and address the fact that women have multiple identities. So that's the intersectional approach already there introduced. Realities and power relations between ourselves and others. All changes require women's empowerment and involvement. SSE would be successful only if it is gender transformative. Women must create and redefine women's leadership that is sustainable in SSE organizations and movements. Gender needs to be a key issue in SSE, and women must be given the recognition for the work that they do. So this includes the unrecognized, unpaid care work in households. Women and men need space to discuss and develop SSE gender perspectives within SSE local, national, and international networks. We need to bring up local context and share SSE women's experiences into discussions. Gender must be officially included in all RIPES meetings and platforms. So this was actually a very, very strong declaration. So in summary, SSE must respond to both women's practical gender needs and strategic gender interests of women's empowerment, gender justice, and gender equality. It must be gender transformative. SSE calls for us to organize, mobilize, and network. Wherever we are, whatever we do, all of us can play a role in building and propagating a feminist social solidarity economy. So thank you very much. Now we'll go to our plenary discussion. But Vince, I am seeing some questions in the chat box. Am I right? No, it's Kuya Ben asking to excuse himself. That's okay. That's okay. Sige.
Surely.
So Vince, can I go
Yes,
now
thank
to
you very
my plenary? Thank you. Okay.
Go
Oh no,
ahead.
William is leaving us as well. Okay, I hope that the others are going to stay because I would very much want to hear the experiences, of the participants. We want to hear experiences from the ground with respect to feminist SSE. So I'd like to ask this question and throw this to our participants. What concrete feminist SSE practices are there in your organization? So these are practices that meet women's practical and strategic gender needs and interests. So again, practical gender needs refer to survival needs such as income, employment, etc. While strategic gender needs address women's subordinate or lower position in society. So can we hear from our participants? I'm now going to stop sharing so we can see each other, Vince.
Surely. Yes,
Okay.
anyone who would like to share, yeah, please feel free to raise your hand or you can turn on your mic. Then we are more than happy to listen to your narrative. Yeah, who would like to go first?
There. Can I just say, when I did the data gathering for my dissertation in 2013, so oh my God, it's 10 years ago, and Dean Inday of Reneo, by the way, Professor Emeritus of Reneo, who's also in the room, was my dissertation advisor. I did not go into my field sites with with organizations that were already clearly working with a feminist SSE frame. No, it was just me thinking about it and trying to see if I could see it, not the values and practices of a feminist SSE within their organizations. And that was the data that I presented, some of it, not the entirety of it. So it would be very interesting for me to hear, particularly for those who work in SSE organizations, if there are practices, no, or policies in your organizations that actually adhere or promote, no, a feminist SSE.
Oh, Doc Nancy, perhaps William would like to expound on what he is typing on the chat box about
Yeah.
his organization, which is 96% male involved. William, would you like to share more on this?
Yeah,
Would you like
before
to
you go, William, because he
Okay,
said he's about to
yeah.
leave.
Our organization is still low involvement from the women, because I think our reaching out still not really beyond our jurisdiction. So we're trying to bring more women, but it seems like there's still, I mean, the trust is not there yet. I think probably they want to see
Yeah.
whether we establish or not. Yeah.
Okay, but William, it would be good to interrogate also why women are not joining. So, and the
Yeah.
only way to do it would be to ask them what is
Yeah, probably.
preventing them. Yeah.
Probably we will do that. Ask what is their question, what is their doubt before joining our organization. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, William. You will just
Yes.
hopefully give us an update.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you, William. The Doc Nancy, perhaps before we could go to the question or to Humera sharing, can I share this question sent to me through WhatsApp? It's actually related to William's concern. It's about having, like, say for example, 80 to 90% male within the organization. How can you, what's your let me rephrase this question. What will be your best recommendation towards ensuring or engendering such organizations with high percentage of male, say for example, sets of officers? Where do we start? The question is, where do we begin? Perhaps that's the best point for that.
Okay, maybe I'll start by saying that we do not need to have so many women in order for an organization to practice feminist SSE, because this is also about how we are able to, in our own capacities, promote women's empowerment, gender justice, and gender equality. And we work in supply chains anyway, right? So we can actually influence the other actors in the supply chain, and we could actually even practice gender equality and gender justice even in our households, in our communities. So I'm now directing this response to men in male-dominated organizations. So just because you are comprised of, majority of you are men, doesn't mean that you cannot be a feminist SSE. Okay, but how do we encourage women? Like I mentioned earlier, when William said that their organization is 90% men, it's really for us to find out why is it that women are not joining the organizations. It's really I need to, go into the communities, facilitate discussions and, and dialogues, and see, maybe though they don't feel welcome, they don't feel that their needs will be addressed, that they'll be excluded, they won't be able to participate fully anyway because of the prevailing gender ideology, where they might be subordinated, etc. So there's the only way we can encourage women is to find out why they are not joining, and then find ways to encourage them to join, institute policies and practices that will be hospitable for women members. I love that hands are raised. Let's hear from everyone. I'm very excited to hear everyone's voices. Vince, please moderate the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Let me call first Indrani. Indrani, would you like to
Yes.
to go first? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I come from the consumer movement, and while in the office, actually we have more women than males who are our staff, and we provide various support in terms of, time off, for women who give birth, even for their breastfeeding time and all that. So I think in terms of providing support in the organization, I think it's there. But I think when it comes to work, especially on the area of work, Natalie, like as I said, we work on consumer policies, consumer protection. I think the consumer movement, even globally, we have not incorporated a kind of a gender focus lens. We have been quite gender neutral. So how would you suggest that we go about now? I mean, I've been attending a few gender sensitive, sessions and so on. I think this has been the best because, I learned a lot of terminologies. I saw your video, the 5th module. First, it was kind of so overwhelming. I had to see 2 or 3 times for me to understand. But I think this was the first time that, that the terminologies were explained. I still find it, I'm still grappling, but at least there's some sort of understanding. But I think we have not looked into it from the consumer policy, in the area of work that we do. So just your suggestion on how you think we can start going about it, because globally I used to work with the Consumers International, and we never looked at it from the gender lens. So your thoughts and ideas on, all of us are consumers. So just your ideas on that. Thank you.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this in one of my slides, Rani, how we should maybe prioritize women's products as consumers. I think that's a very concrete step that we can take to help women producers, is to prioritize their products in our consumption activities. I mean, that's one. But also, I still see a need to increase critical awareness about gender, because we need to explain to people that there is inequality. I don't know if enough people are aware about this, no, at least from consumers' perspectives. So that's another thing that we should be attending to. It's still raising awareness about why it is just to support women producers. I'm not sure if I'm helping with your thinking process, but perhaps we could have a discussion in your own mind. What is immediately doable in terms of working on
I mean, in terms of when we do awareness, to either to school kids or even to the adults, we kind of just come up with general materials that kind of just cater for both men and women. Like we don't specifically go and kind of customize programs that's raising awareness only for the women in terms of your rights as a consumer when you go to the marketplace, things like that. So I find that there's no gender lens in that sense, that it's just very gender neutral, irrespective of whether you're a man or a woman going to the marketplace. So that's why it's a little bit difficult compared to the other areas. I think Asma said she wanted to share. I perhaps if you're okay with that.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi. Actually, I work for Sabah, and our organization works in a very far-flung areas of Pakistan, where the mobility of women are very, very restricted. They are even not allowed to go out of the village or even to the next houses if the male member are not friendly with each other. So when they started working with us, and they were, we are working on the traditional craft, promotion of traditional craft and marketing the product. So what when they were getting the labor payment, because they initially started working and embroidering the pieces. So this payment, when they used to get this, used to go to either to the mother-in-law or to the mother or to husband, because we will give them cash, and this used to go to the family members. And secondly, since there were so many restrictions, so then we come up with this strategy that when they start working with us, for first 3 to 4 payments, they will get in cash. But from that, then onwards, they will have to open a bank account. And only then they can get the payment, and they will have to have their checkbooks and all that. So that was something which then they had to make the ID cards, which women were not allowed to have the ID cards. So because they didn't want them to vote or anything. And of course, no property could be transferred to women because they don't have ID cards. And it was like something they had to take the permission from men. It was kind of a strategy for their mobility, for their empowerment anyways. So they convinced the men, and that of course when the money was coming, they wanted this kind of money to run the house or whatever. So they allowed their women, they started making their ID cards. Now these women they open their bank accounts, and the bank accounts is like they have to go to the bank to take the cash, because either they have to put the signature or the thumb impression. And so this we had addressed in a way, and this has really made a lot of change, because those women who were not allowed to go out, now they go to the bank. When they go to the bank, they do other work. They go to the market, they buy the raw material. Otherwise, they were dependent on their husbands or mother-in-law or somebody else to do that. So once this step by step, and they go out of the village in the main city and then go to the bank, and then they start going to the exhibitions also, and going out of their cities, and few of them, they made passports and they went out of the country. So this was like a very small kind of a strategy at a time, but it has really transformed their roles. And one thing I want to mention also, that in one village where we started, so there was there was a mosque, and the imam or the cleric of the mosque, he was dead against the organization, and he said they are spoiling our women, and they're doing this and that, and they shouldn't be allowed to come here, and nobody should work with them. So the women, they really wanted to work with us, and because they were earning money, they were like, this was very helpful for them. What they did, they brought in the group the mosque's prayer leader's wife. So she also knew how to embroidery. So they asked her to join the group. She started doing that. She got the money first time, second time, and then the mosque leader, the prayer leader, was very happy. And then she also had to open the bank account, and he couldn't say that they cannot open the account and all that. So they actually, this was the strategy of this community, these women, they did that. So this I really wanted to share. Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you, Asma. So there are creative ways that we can think about, because sometimes we really have to go against culture, and that can be very difficult. So there are ways.
Yes,
it seems, yeah. And they are effective. They have proven effective.
Very effective, very effective. In our case, it's very effective.
Oh, it really gives us a lot of hope. Thank you very much. Vince, I'm sorry you're moderating the discussion.
Yes, yes. I felt so happy about Asma's sharing. Thank you very much. That brought about a lot of positivity this afternoon. Thank you. Before I call on Rodmark, let me read first Humera's sharing. According to her, 80% females are working in our organizations. Organization working on feminist approaches have say for example, have separate washroom there and relaxation and time for working mothers. Thank you for sharing, Asma. Rodmark, would you like to go ahead with your sharing?
Thank you, Vince, and thank you. Hello, Dr. Natsi and Dr. Etchel. Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody first for doing this, no, and including all the topics. Going through module 5 and 6 just made me realize that I have so much work to do in terms of catching up with everything. We in what we do, I'll talk about my experiences with my small social enterprise. So even the concepts of SSE, I'm still trying to catch up because I was so focused. I just when I started, I didn't know that I was a social enterprise. I just knew I could help. I had something that could help communities. And then I found the world of social entrepreneurship, and now it's SSC. So what we do basically is we set up micro ice plants. We provide all the equipment, we find the funding, and we partner with community organizations or associations, and we give them the micro ice plants and teach them how to run it as their own business. And ever since we've started, we never really had any preference whether it was a all-female organization or men organization or women-led. In our experience, we've set up 30 micro ice plants already since we started. The best performing micro ice plants and the better run micro ice plants are the women-led or almost all women micro ice plants, even if the business is labor intensive. So, but I loved one of your slides. I love one of your slides, and this hit me home really when you were talking about when you're comparing neoliberal economy and SSE, and that you said that SSE is by nature feminist because it's solid. That's so true, and maybe that's one thing. The problem I see with how we're doing things and maybe other actors in the development world is that we have so little information and so little knowledge about how to go about it, no? But by nature also, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve is very much aligned with SSE and with feminism and with the gender perspective. It's just that we're not deliberate about how we do things because we're either misinformed or we lack knowledge. But again, I'd just like to thank you because um, and this has opened up so many things for me, and I'm so excited to be more deliberate in what we're doing. And especially now that I find myself more and more playing out in the social enterprise and SSE development in the country. So I'm so excited and I'm so grateful, really.
Thank you very much, Rodmark, for your sharing. The Doc Nazi.
Thank you, Rodmark. Thank you so much. And Rodmark is actually up to date in his modules. I think the only
Yes.
one.
Summa cum laude. Running for summa cum
Summa
laude.
cum
This is just a
laude.
joke. Yeah, yeah. Emma, before I call you Emma, I would just like to ask. This was a question from Ate Zoni. Does it follow that an organization which is dominantly female is gender sensitive? What are your thoughts about this, Doc Natson?
Of course not. Zone, we know that for a fact. Just because you're comprised of all women doesn't mean that you're gender sensitive. I mean, you could be adhering to all the traditional gender norms. You could be, a survivor, a person who is constantly experiencing domestic violence and yet thinking it is natural. So no, not necessarily. That's why it's important to do gender sensitivity training, even and especially perhaps among women.
Yeah, thank you, Doc Natsi, and thank you. I hope that answers Ate Zoni. Yes, Emma. Please go ahead, Emma. You're raising your hand.
Yeah. Okay. First, I would like to thank Ms. Nachi for this, because my major takeaway for this. Presentation, I have been absent for the last two because I was so busy. The first quarter of the year, the first month of the year is so busy in work and also with the family reunions and everything. But anyway, my first major takeaway with all my trainings on gender equality, gender in development in the 1990s and in the 20s is intuitively, the main takeaway during your presentation is that identifying SSE as a feminine energy. Because basically, I'm into local economic development. My expertise is SME development. And I find SME development, business development, as the tools that they are using are all masculine. It's all masculine. And, but intuitively, I can feel, that's why SSE, I have been searching for what kind of economic design or enterprise design that it will have, because intuitively I know, and my friends in gender equality and in the feminist movement have been, because I always say that we will not be able to attain gender equality if within ourselves we are not able to find balance about our masculine and feminine energy. Because outwardly, my ambition, I'm a very strong personality. So when I work, I have this masculine energy. But I'm also recognizing that I survive everything because of my feminine intuition, my feminine energy. I survived trauma, I survived relationships and problems in work, and even during my student days and with my parents, because of that feminine recognition of that feminine energy. So my major takeaway is that we have to recognize and we have to be very, what is the word you use, Rodmar? Very deliberate with all the process with regards to feminine gender strategy. And we have to start within ourselves. What are the cultures that are impeding us to balance our feminine energy and masculine energy? Because I am able to reach my ambition because I'm using masculine energy, aggressiveness, you know. But with regards to transcending problems and issues, and everything is relationship, what make me survive is my feminine, the nurturing, the being soft, collaboration, cooperation. So that is my major takeaway. And then moving towards how do we transform the masculine energy, which is basically, especially in the economic arena, especially in the business development. One is, this is based on my experience, is that we are, which we started in the women's project, engendering the local economic development process, particularly the analysis part, particularly the project designing, proposal designing. This should, and also when we go into the community to do development work, we also need to, as part of the social investigation, to engender our tools in social investigation, especially in designing projects, even though it is an enterprise development, SME development, income generating project. The survey, the baseline data should include analysis, tools for gender analysis, engendering the tools that is being used, especially into maximizing what are enterprises that has promoting gender equality. These are usually with the scarce resources in the marginal sector. The resources are most often maximized by using gender tools, gender equality tools, by using the feminine energy tools. That is one of my experience. And also, even those funding agencies that are designing projects, like they have KPIs, their way of engendering to put the cross-cutting theme of gender equity in the program is they put KPIs, number of women in leadership, number of women in involved in that project. But it's not just number of women. From the very start of the design, you should be able to analyze how, because when I was the ASEDA program country manager, I had a hard time finding, we are working with women businessmen, businesswomen in the, and I have a hard time finding women, number of women in business, because at a certain level of their business headed by women, they have children that become teenagers, and when you have children that have teenagers, then you have some problems when you are busy women in business. So they have to go out of the enterprise to focus on the family and to focus their energy and time focusing on family. So those are the things that we have to take into consideration. And even ILO with their gendered in their programs, like we had a program in training women, and I found out that these women, they have to attend a 1 month, this is in Typhoon Yolanda, they have to attend a 1 month for livelihood and capacity building to generate wealth creation. They have children 0 to 5, and they attend this training. And they will say, we cannot attend the 1 month training on food production, food processing, because they have these children. And so we include in the design of the training design that to have a minder, children's minder during the training, so that these women can attend. So those are some of the examples which I know we should have started even during the project design. We should have tools in designing programs that, you know, that should analyze, that will inform us on how we will implement projects, taking into consideration gender equality objectives. And thank you very much for that validation that social solidarity economy is really, and I agree with you, it's really a feminine energy, a feminine point of view.
Thank you very much, Emma, for this amazing sharing. Doc Nancy, anything that you would like to add?
No, yeah, thank you for that, Emma, and also for your sharing, because of her very rich experience that we were able to benefit from in the time that she was given to share. I think Rodmark also had his hand raised
Yes,
earlier before we end.
Let's have Rodmark the last question. But Rodmark, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Before we have Rodmark, I think I need to read it from B. It's a sharing, creating a harmonious work-life balance for all gender will actually open more opportunity of participation, especially for women. Implement policies that promote a future of work that is gender responsive by design and is anchored by social justice and decent work. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much for this, B. Okay, yes, Rodmark, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I forgot to ask my question a while ago, but this is one of the things that we see often, but I'll give you an example, and it's something that we don't know how to answer. Like one of the very first partners we had was a family, particularly a woman in Bulacan, and we trained her to run the micro ice plant. But one of her biggest problems when we were starting, when we met her, she already had 4 children, and one was differently abled, and she was the only one taking care of it. The husband didn't have a job, so what we did was we told her to employ the husband to help her with the business, We bought her a motorcycle, which the husband could use. So he could be the one to deliver the products. Unfortunately, time and again, uh, she would have to stop operations and stop her business because there was a problem with the husband. If the husband gets drunk, she wouldn't be allowed to go to work. Sometimes she'll get physical abuse. And after 2 years, she already had 6 children. So from 4 children, after 2 years, she had 6 children. And we didn't know we didn't know what kind of intervention. And we see this in a lot of situations where because of the patriarchal nature, maybe not just in our country, but we don't know what kind of intervention we can give, or if we can point to a group that has a particular intervention. And that's my question: how do we help them with this kind of situation?
Yes, Rodmark, thank you for that question because it gives us an idea of the issues that we confront with on the ground. Because on a theoretical level, it's so easy to advocate for this is the ideal. But then when we go on the ground, we see these challenges. Actually, this is an issue of sexual and reproductive health and rights. And there are the SRHR organizations. And in particular, I recommend Likaan, the Likaan Center for Women's Health. I think we have a clinic in Bulacan. But in any case, there's one in Quezon City. So your women entrepreneurs can just go there and have their implants. It's free. It's free. Or if they prefer an injectable, or they can be given a supply of birth control pills. But that's precisely why it's important to promote sexual and reproductive health and rights, and also awareness about gender-based violence and violence against women, because it does affect women's ability to work. See, so yeah, thank you for that, Rodmark. So please remember the Kaan Center for Women's Health.
I wrote it down. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much again.
They have a Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and you can just send a message.
Thank you.
Or you can message me. I can give you the clinic address and details.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay, sige. I'll do that. Sige, thank you. Vince, I'm doing a time check because I don't want to go very much over time.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
Vince, nawawala ka.
Oh, nga. Can you hear me now, Doc Nazi? Hello? Yes, hello? Yeah.
We can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. In line with this session of Doc Nazi, we will be opening again another online discussion forum for questions which might arise after the discussion. And Doc Nasi and I will be more than happy to help you in answering those questions. Okay, so with that, it's already 5:07. We go on overtime again for another week, but then it's a very fruitful and meaningful afternoon for everyone, and we are more than happy about this. I'm sure Dininday is happy about this. Before we end this session, Dininday, would you have any updates or anything that you would like to share to the participants?
Din, you might have announcements.
Yes.
I think she's not able to hear us, Vince. It's okay, Vince.
No worries. Yeah. With that, I would like to thank everyone for coming over to our third synchronous session. We have another synchronous session scheduled for next week. I wish everyone a safe and awesome weekend. Please do take care of yourself. Have an awesome weekend. Goodbye for now. I will be ending the Zoom session. Go ahead, Doctor.
I pushed I clicked the wrong button. But thank you for.
Go ahead, Dinida. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you for this excellent and wonderful session. To the UPCWGS, Nazi and HL, you are a pride. We are so proud of you being Women and Dev and Doctor of Social Development graduates. And of course, Shigeru's session was very stimulating. But next week, I would like to interest you because the topic will be decent work and the future of work. digital economy, all cutting edge issues. And we have someone from the labor movement and the School of Labor in UP who will lead the discussion, and hope you look at your modules and do your exercises like Rod Marco will be valedictorian. But I can understand the the double burden, triple burden of people who have to do house, reproductive work and then go to work and then do NGO and CSO work. Sometimes it can get very, very burdensome, but I hope this sessions will give you some inspiration to continue what you're doing and to spread the word like a gospel, like a canon, as Shigeru was explaining a while ago. So again, congratulations. And thank you to Vince for doing all the hard work, following our participants individually, calling them one by one. My God, you're worse than a disciple. But we have no Jesus Christ. We only have
You see,
Nazi.
Dininday, that's why we cannot say no to you. We feel a lot to you, Dininday was part of my dissertation panel, and I learned so much from her also, like from Nazi.
But the first feminist lesson is learn to say no. Okay. So see you all next week, and I hope you will say yes, huh? No. See you. Bye.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Perfect
Bye.
weekend.
Happy weekend.
Shelby.
Everyone. Bye, everyone. See you.
Big
Thank you.
answer.